there a danger in trying so hard to appease the hardcore fans that you risk losing the mainstream audience?
I don't know about that. I think I think you just have to try to make it a good movie. You just have to, as long as it's moving along well, you'll carry them. It doesn't matter what the story, it matters that the story is good, that it carries them.
Right.
It's not like Watchmen doesn't make a good movie script. It's a matter of some of the choices along the way will either make it clear for people or not.
Comic dialogue is not meant to be read out loud, and some of the more painful moments in some of the comic book adaptations, the film adaptations you've heard and so forth, are moments where they're speaking dialogue right out of the comic that was never meant to be spoken by a human mouth.
If it doesn't advance story, plot, and character at exactly the same time, get rid of it. Because we don't have enough room, and it has to move the story, and if it's extraneous, if it's just a fun little scene that doesn't do anything else, move it elsewhere, keep it, computers are great for that, just put it in the scenes I'd like to do some other time.
The only thing for me is when I'm writing, I really want it to be good, and I need to know where I'm going. I need to know what the end goal is of my story, so I plot ahead like 2 years.
Really good art can lift a really bad story or lame dialogue, and people will still come away thinking, hey, it's a pretty good comic.
Right.
But a really amazing story cannot lift mediocre art.
What comes first for you? Is it character or story?
They're both connected.
Okay.
You can't do one without the other.
I have no problem on the dialogue side, it's all structure.
Really?
To me, everything has to be in the structure of the story before I write my dialogue, because if the structure doesn't work, the story won't work.
I worked really hard on writing natural exposition because when you read exposition, it is the most painful thing in the world. Especially if you've been reading a serial comic for like 5 or 6 years and you know that Wolverine is the best at what he does, and you don't want to be reminded of that over and over again in those exact words.
There's some characters that are just only there to say one thing, to get in the way, or to say, no, that can't be done, that can't be done. Well, that's not good enough.
Right.
Why can't it be done? What brought them to this point, and how does that resolve itself?
What are some of the obstacles you struggle with as a writer?
The biggest obstacle I struggled with learning to write was, again, that economy of storytelling and trying to figure out how to cut everything to the bone so that you can tell the maximum amount of story in the minimum amount of space.
I read too many stories that literally make not a whit of sense to me. There's lots of great dialogue that's fun and you're laughing along, and when you come to the end of it you go, I don't know what that story was about.
Just because you want to write Batman or Superman, you also have to be able to write every other character in that universe, or you have to be able to write your own original characters. And you have to be as adept at that as you are at writing the characters whose voices you've been imagining since you were a kid.
Even one line can say a lot about a character.
Yeah.
One gesture can say a lot about a character. But when you're dealing with multiple characters, then you have to figure out why they're there. Otherwise, again, they're just crowd scenes.
Is there any superhero that you haven't written yet that you really want to?
No. I've written them all. I would like to write them again, and I'd like to write full series of some of them, but in one way or another I've written them all.
Every time I meet a writer, I say, have you written anything? And if they say no, the advice is write something.
The trick with all these characters always is to get in there and figure out what it is you love about these characters, and then just show the rest of the world what you love. It's that simple.
Maybe it sounds trite to say, but I think there are great moral lessons in comic books, in these stories, not just comic books, but in our mythological. If the Greek myths were designed to sort of illustrate morality and the problems of humanity to the Greeks, well, these are the stories that do it for me.